Sri Lanka will call Platinum 1 a landmark. Only 70 will call it home. Because the address and where you live matters. Platinum 1, the finest address in Colombo.
Now time for our special segment, the Friday Editorial.
An opposition party has always to be morally and ethically superior to the government that it criticizes. That is the real strength of an opposition. If an opposition party is not perceived by the citizenry, the voters really, as being ethically superior to the government of the day, then it will never become a governing party. Now, on 2 or 3 major issues, the UNP is actually lagging behind the government in moral and ethical terms, which is an absurd situation. The opposition charges the government with authoritarianism, if not dictatorship. Now, that may or may not be correct, but it is hypocritical when the opposition has been under one leader for 20 years, whereas the government has had 2 leaders. And when questioned, UNP members themselves say that the party constitution is such that it's not possible to change the leadership. And that the last time around, the party had, the working committee had rubber stamped the present leader as the leader for the next 6 years. Now, this is a dreadful picture of an internal dictatorship. I hear the term media terrorists and media terrorism being used by the opposition. Now, these are the terms that the government spokespersons use. These are the terms that the propagandists of the government have been using for years. But now, one hears leading opposition UNP personalities using the same terminology against not the government press or the government television, but against the non-state or privately owned and therefore independent or autonomous media. Now, this again is absolutely ironic and dismaying as a phenomenon. The United National Party has taken to wielding sticks and stones and clubs in broad daylight, deploying mobs against demonstrators and dissenters. Now, how can a party which does that in the full view of the cameras credibly challenge the government on issues of democracy and dictatorship? The people want an opposition that doesn't have the same ailments as the government, and it also wants an opposition that is far more sensitive than this government to issues of cost of living, to issues of social justice. You need a UNP which taps into its earlier strengths of being a party of welfare and development, a party that cares for the rural people, that cares for the people in the provinces. The present UNP has, I think, only one personality who is not in the Leadership Council, who can reach out to and who resonates with the rural voters, who are 60% of the voters of this country. And those who arrive at the convention must bear in mind the importance of 2014. Not only is it going to be obviously a year of elections, but it will also be the 20th year in which the UNP has been in opposition. It's been an opposition party from 1994 to 2014, and all of this has been under the same leadership. The country itself has been ruled by 2 presidents, Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga, who had 2 terms, and now Mahinda Rajapaksa, who is in his 2nd term. But the United National Party and the opposition in Parliament have been led by one man for the last 20 years, and that is also the period in which the party has been in opposition. Now, that's something of a record in the history of democracy, really, and the UNP must decide whether it wants to celebrate a quarter century in the same situation. Because the UNP has not only failed to secure the new voters, the so-called floating vote, the fence sitters, it has lost quite a bit, almost half of its own traditional voter base. So the party is dissolving, it's self-destructing at the grassroots. So the UNP has to strategize tomorrow how it can survive, and it must realize that there is no way in which it can stop the hemorrhaging of votes without a complete and visible change of the party's leadership. So the party has to decide that it must make the change necessary, I say change, not changes, necessary for it to stop the accelerating downward spiral of the United National Party's electoral performance. When one watches the meetings of the party decision-making bodies these days on television, you could very clearly see what's happened. You have Mr. Wickremesinghe sitting by himself at the head of the table, and on his right or his left, I'm not quite sure which it is, there sits the leader of the Leadership Council, Mr. Karu Jayasuriya, as if he were the private secretary or a stenographer. Now, there's not been any change. This is a purely decorative body. The party members have to save the party. The party has already lost over half of its traditional vote base. It's a crisis of existence for the United National Party. The party convention has to grapple frontally with the issue that the UNP is unelectable so long as it does not change its leadership honestly and credibly. Now, Mr. Jayasuriya should have either stayed in the party and fought to establish a patriotic nationalist leadership of the UNP, or if he crossed over, as he says, in order to help the war effort, he should have stayed on until the war had been won. As for Mr. Mangala Samaraweera, the behavior that we all saw him indulging in on television during the Mathura rally, the deployment of people with sticks and stones, does not speak very well. It has done terrible damage to the image of the United National Party, and will doubtless impact negatively on the party's capacity to run an effective election campaign in the southern province. So whoever the UNP candidates are, it really won't matter unless the factor of the UNP's leadership and the leadership of the opposition has been addressed by changing that leadership. If that leadership is changed in the right direction, then the UNP candidates, whoever they are, can in fact make a significant difference. They might not be able to do what Chandrika Kumaratunga managed to do in the Western Province in 1994, which was a game changer, but the UNP would be able to do well, but only if the party leadership is changed. So long as it's Mr. Wickremesinghe who's still the leader of the party, then whoever the candidates are, it will be very difficult even to have a campaign. What the party convention needs to do is really quite simple but absolutely crucial. The party has to identify a personality who is capable of bringing back the basic singular rural and provincial vote that the UNP once enjoyed, and it has lost under Mr. Wickremesinghe.